we'll give a couple of people. Oh, I just got the notification we're recording. I'll give people just a couple more minutes to join in, but we're so happy that you were able to join us today to talk about succession planning and related topics. I am going to turn it over to my friend, Mary Lynn. Mary Lynn is representing both Dovia Sacramento as well as NavPlug, and has been very active in local associations for a number of years. And so she is going to be our moderator today and will be kind of walking us through a roundtable discussion. We have multiple very experienced professionals who have a lot of experience in local associations who are going to share their experience with you today. So I will hand it over to my friend Mary Lynn.
Thank you so much, Jen. Welcome, everybody, and we hope we have a good discussion today. And Jen is going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions or you want to make a comment, please go ahead and drop them into the chat. And then Jen will be kind of pulling things from there as we go along. We'll have plenty of time for questions later, but we also encourage you to drop that comment in as you're thinking of it, because I know how it is. By the time more discussion goes on, it's like, now what was that question I had? So go ahead and put it in there, and we'll try to answer them as we go along as well. So today, our group will be on the panel is Shelley Beck with MAVA, Brenda Michael Haggard with Tulsa Alive, Kathy Toma with Alive, and also Tim Suda. So I'm going to ask them to go ahead and introduce themselves. And Tim, I can see you on my monitor at the moment, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary Lynn. Good afternoon for those on the eastern side. Good morning, late morning for the rest of you. I am Tim Suda. I work for the American Red Cross in my day job, but I am the vice president for GAVA, or the Georgia Association for Volunteer Administration, which is a really great group of people that it would not be successful without this local associations group and the support that it does. So I'm happy to be sharing back as a representative of someone who's received support through these type of presentations.
Very good, thank you. And then Shelley Beck with MAVA, could you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Shelley Beck. Welcome, everyone. I am here in Minnesota, and I was a member of MAVA, a board member, and very active with MAVA for a number of years, and I have some pretty good insights into what we did that made us so successful.
Very good, very good. And then Brenda,
oh, wait, before we move on from Shelley, because
sure,
she's being modest, she's also on the Alive board, so she can share from that experience as well. Sorry, Shelley, just want to throw that in there too.
No problem. Yes, I am on the Alive board and very excited to be.
Thank you, Shelley. And then Brenda, could you introduce yourself?
You bet. Thanks for having me. Brenda Michael Haggard, been in the not-for-profit world for 112 years and marrying fundraising and friend raising, resource development with our volunteers as philanthropists. And in 2017, Tulsa Alive was born and is still volunteer-driven, volunteer-led. And I'm here to talk about our succession planning.
Very good, thank you. And our last presenter would be, or panelist would be Kathy Toma. And I'm not sure if Kathy is here or not, but Kathy, if you are, will you please introduce yourself?
I don't think she's on yet. So there was a problem with the link, so we're getting that sorted out on this end. So I'll let you know when Kathy pops in.
All right, link has been sent to Kathy. So when Kathy joins us, we'll add her into the mix here. Should we wait a minute for her, or do we feel like we should go ahead?
I think we can go ahead.
Maybe,
all righty.
Can I say maybe we have all the folks attending today introduce themselves? Because there are some
sure.
new faces that I am excited to see.
Okay, well, Gretchen, do you want to lead that off? Because you can watch on your monitor there and call out. How about that?
Yes. Hi, Gina. How about Gina and Jennifer go together?
Do you want me to go? Hi, I'm Gina Edwards. I work for the Heart of Illinois United Way. I will be been here 22 years in January. I have a very long title as Vice President of Marketing and Community Engagement. It used to be communications, but I do so much with volunteerism since the last 20 years that they changed it to community engagement about 3 years ago, finally. So yay. So we had a group here in Peoria, Illinois called NOVA, Network of Volunteer Administrators. They've been around since probably, I think, like the late 80s, early 90s. And this last year, we had them merged with our organization because we run the local online volunteer center for our community. So I've had the joy. They've asked me to be president of the organization several times. I said, please just merge with us. It'll make it a lot simpler. So I want to hear from everybody. So
Welcome, Gina. How about Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Thompson. I am part of Tulsa Alive, even though I live in Colorado. So I'm basically retired. I don't like it, but I'm doing a lot of volunteer work and trying to promote our profession from that end.
Great.
I'm a former board member also of Alive.
Thank you. How about Brandy Tolbert? Hi, Brandy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Brandy Tolbert. I'm the Director of Literacy Alliance. I also serve on the board for GAVA, which is Georgia's Association for Volunteer Administrators. And locally, I'm the President for TRI-DVS.
Thank you. How about Rochelle? Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, I should see if I can get my video going. Hi, my name's Rochelle Doty. I'm the volunteer coordinator with Interim Hospice in Sacramento, California. I serve on the Dovia Sacramento board with Mary Lynn. I'm currently the membership co-chair. I've been on the board, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, and I've served different positions. So I'm really interested in this topic because, like all of you that serve on boards, we tend to have a little bit of a challenge in filling our positions.
Thank you. And excuse me. Thank you very much. Hi, Becca, go ahead.
I'm Becca. I work at Sanford Health in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm the volunteer coordinator there. And then I am the vice president of our local Dovia board, and will be president next year. So just excited to kind of hear some information to kind of continue to grow. I know after COVID, our organization, our local chapter here is kind of a little bit smaller. And so trying to grow it back up and get people interested in being on the board.
Oh, Gretchen, I think you're unmuted. Sorry.
Sorry, that's why she didn't respond. Hi, Arlette, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Arlette Cunningham, the Assistant Director of Volunteers at Jamaica Hospital. I serve on the NIAVA board with Jerry Panoza. I'm currently the board chair and officer liaison to the Professional Development Committee.
Thank you. How about Carrie? Hi, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, my name's Carrie Gorman, and I am a volunteer services recruitment specialist with the American Red Cross Indiana region. So I recruit special volunteers for different positions and needs throughout our area and make sure that they are engaged and enjoying what they do.
Thank you. And let's see, how about Jennifer Lose? Did I say that right? Lose? Losey?
Lose, you did.
Okay.
Jennifer Lose, I'm the president of the Southern Arizona Volunteer Management Association in Tucson, Arizona, and my day job is the vice president of external relations at Tucson Foundations. I'm a philanthropist, and one of our goals is engaging more volunteerism. So we pop in and out of working with the strengthening the volunteer management field. And so that includes working with SABMA regularly, and I've been doing that for about 20 plus years. So periodically I get elected into the presidency when I miss a meeting.
Thank you. And did I ask Carrie to go?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. And how about Shirley and then Jerry?
I'm Shirley Conger. I am retired after 17 years at the hospital. I currently serve on the leadership committee of Southwest Idaho Directors of Volunteer Services. I was on the original board of Alive with Gretchen, and that's about it.
Thanks. Jerry?
Hello.
Shirley's also being modest, by the way. Shirley's being very modest. So
I'm Jerry Pinozzo, New York City, the New York Association for Volunteer Administration. This is my second year as president, and I'm currently a presenter and blogger, and I made an intentional career change in 1993, and it was my second career after 20 years of my first career. You do the math.
Thanks, Jerry. And we have another person on the call, and I don't see him now. It was Stephen Whitley. Everybody calls him Whit, and maybe he'll be able to jump back on. Are you here, Whit? And I just can't see you. Whit is from Las Vegas and is with Dovia Las Vegas. And I was in Las Vegas this summer on some of my travels, and I tried to meet up with him, but we couldn't get our calendar to work. But I did meet up with Nikki Preston, the president of Dovia Las Vegas. And that was just a great meeting. So I just wanted to thank him personally for that. And hopefully he'll be able to jump back on. So, okay, now we can go ahead. And we've got one more presenter coming. I've sent her a text and an email. I haven't heard back yet. So I'm going to let you guys carry on, and I'm going to try to.
I think you've missed Rochelle and Amanda.
Did I? No, I got Rochelle. And I think Amanda did.
You missed Megan, though.
Megan. Oh, sorry. Megan.
Gonna try to fly under the radar. Thanks, Amanda. I'm Megan. I work at Family Advocates. I do the volunteer recruitment over here, and I just started doing the communications for the Southwest Idaho Directors of Volunteer Services.
Ray, is there anyone that didn't introduce themselves yet then? Okay, Amanda. Sorry.
No, all good, Gretchen. It's all good. Amanda Schmier by day. I am the biomedical volunteer coordinator for the American Red Cross of Idaho, Montana, and Eastern Oregon. And by other part of day, I am also the incoming chair for the Southwest Idaho Directors of Volunteer Services, SWIDOVs, and also a current Alive board member and a member of this awesome local association committee.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll go ahead and I'll start asking some questions. I'm going to combine two questions that we had talked about earlier, and so you can respond as you wish to the question here. It says, what are some strategies that local associations can use to recruit board members? And then along with that, what are some strategies that can be used to keep board members engaged? So Shelley or others who want to join in here, Brenda or Tim?
I think I'm happy to start. I think I just was reading that Kathy is on her way. So when I was with MAVA, we had a very robust board. We were a working board, and I think that I could say the same for Alive. And what made me want to join MAVA and what made me want to join Alive was the connecting with my people. I sometimes refer to going to my MAVA board meetings as my support group. We have similar struggles and successes, and it is a time to support each other. And I think that when recruiting, that is a really good approach. There's a lot of new people in the field, and who do they learn from? How do they learn? Where do they go now? Like, you know, how many of us joined the field of volunteer engagement and we didn't even realize that there was a profession? I just hired a new volunteer coordinator and she's like, there's books written about this. Like, it's just not something that everybody knows. So at this point, we need to be letting those people that are volunteer engagement professionals know that we're here and what is the benefit to being here. And maybe they become a board member, or maybe they just become a member of the association, and down the road, it might be 2 months, it could be a year or 2 years, they become a board member. But just building up that membership, I think, is a really good kind of place to start. And then to keep board members, I think, is that same strategy. Engagement. Our board members are engaged in their field already. They want to learn more. What do they want to learn about? And once they get their toes wet in learning about what they're learning, maybe they can teach somebody else. So they start another group, or they lead a class in it, but we need to be helping them, because so many of us have been in the field for 20 years, or we kind of got to go back to what worked when we started. I think that's my philosophy. I'll let someone else.
And I would say here, back to the basics. Just like we recruit volunteers for our programs, it is one-on-one, asking, inviting. We've modeled the fun that we have. We've been the role models for how great our programming and the operations can be, but it is now one-on-one in engaging new members and those of the great unwashed who just don't know how awesome it is to be in this field and how much support they would actually have. And we have offered consistently. We have been there through the years. Jennifer and I are still standing through the pandemic, so we are ready to embrace and welcome. And maybe further on, I can share the screen and show how we have kind of refashioned our board roles.
Very good. And Kathy, what we're discussing is what are some strategies that local associations can use to recruit board members, and what are some strategies that they can use to keep board members engaged? So that's what we're working on.
Right. Well, you know, I was thinking, bouncing off of what Shelley said about newer people in the field, and also thinking about newer in the field, but also perhaps younger people in the field. You know, so many AmeriCorps volunteers work in volunteer engagement as their first thing that they do. They come in as recruiters. So I think having a connection with the people who support or supply AmeriCorps volunteers, and your you know, the links to those groups is a great way to pull people in. The other thought too is going to young professional associations. And, you know, I think sometimes people don't realize that volunteer managers are professionals, right? Because we don't have job leveling, we don't have a job code yet. Alive is working on that. But you know, going to where they are, they're doing it. So how do we find them? And I think that's one opportunity. Keeping them. So I'm a part of the Alive board, president-elect, and currently what I'm doing right now is board development and going through our candidates for next year. But I think one thing we've done, which is pretty good, is we have board buddies. So once you're a part of the board, there's someone who is mentoring you to as much as little as you need or want. And so it's someone who's been on the board, who understands what the board is doing, buddies with you, talks with you maybe once a month, kind of help guides you. When you're first on a board, it can be a little overwhelming, understanding even the meeting structure, reading financials. They can be a little different per board, and that can be a little intimidating for people. So making sure that you are helping in that process, willing to talk to people and work through those issues, and then finding the spot on the board that they are very interested in. One, a way they can contribute to the board, but two, how can we help develop them so they can go on to other future opportunities. But I think, having that partnership, that board buddy, is something that you can consider at your local association. And it's a touch point. So you're keeping them engaged that way.
Thanks, Kathy. And Tim, did you want to share some ideas there on this topic too?
Just wanted to quickly on top of everything that's already been said, just reiterate, especially the giving for when it comes to engaging board members, opportunities of things they want to do that they don't get to do. In our day jobs, we all have portions of our jobs we don't like, and we all have portions that we would love to do that we just don't have the time or budget or whatever. And so when there are opportunities to do that, that's extremely attractive, especially when it gets coupled with building the leadership skills and building the resume and building the network. It seems to help us be successful. Very
good. Thank you, Tim. The next question we have actually feeds into what you were just saying, Tim, a little bit. It's like some have suggested that there is a generational element interfering with board recruitment. How can local associations make board service more attractive?
So I've got to say that there may be an element to it, but look at the people that are here today. Look at the representation of different age groups and backgrounds. And we have a really, one of the things I love about our field is how diverse in so many different ways that it is. And so if there is a difference, or, different generations are looking for different things, that may be true, but there's still the opportunity there. And so much of life and so much of working with volunteers, which includes board members, is meeting people where they are and communicating with them in the way they wish to be communicated with. And I think if we can do that and meet a lot of the engagement points that were just discussed, we can get there.
I do know in other fields, I'm sorry. I do know in other fields, people it's expected that they do board service. So like young attorneys are on boards on nonprofits. That is a resume builder, but it also shows community service, and it's kind of expected. So I think, understanding that, showing your commitment to our field, and it's also a resume builder to show leadership to help you in the future. And it is generational. I don't think, I know I'm looking at us and we have different age groups and everything. And I don't want to say my age group tends to do boards. I think it's kind of an individual decision, regardless of your generation and how you choose to serve. I know maybe young people don't even understand there is that opportunity. Again, it's that communication, but they serve in a lot of ways, and form their own type of volunteering organizations. I think of the, March for Our Lives. That was all high school people collaborating to do that. So I think just explaining that it, will help you be a leader in the future, and as, connection to the field.
I have two thoughts about this. One was back, well, both are from my MAVA days. First of all, I link back and what we as a profession don't do, and we heard this at the 2017 National Summit, we don't toot our own horns. And what we need to do is more of that. And we need to toot our horns to other volunteer managers and help them learn how to toot their horns too. Because what we are doing is impacting so many people in the world that we need to promote that and I think if we start doing a better job, or not a better, clearly we do a good job of it, but I do think that there is room for improvement to actually tell people that are new to the field, and some of them may be younger, some of them may not be younger, but what an impact we are making and how to do that. So maybe Alive should have a how to toot your own horn class coming up about, how do we put this stuff on our resume? Isn't that great for somebody that's coming in new to the field? How do we tell our employer? When I was with MAVA, for a couple years, we actually sent to the president, CEO of board member organizations, a letter from MAVA, from Mary, our director of MAVA, that said, thank you for allowing Shelley to do service as a board member with MAVA. Because of her service with MAVA, blah, 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 blah happened. And we know that this is taking away from her time with Lang Bloomstead. And my organization then all of a sudden, because I didn't know necessarily how to toot my own horn. So MAVA was helping me learn that. So I think that's also a good thing that we can do as boards in promoting that. Now I'm better at it. So everybody knows I'm part of Alive, and my tooting's pretty good now, but I think that it takes practice and it takes time to learn those things. So again, I go back to that's kind of our job.
I think Brenda, go ahead, Brenda.
Before we move on, can I, there's something going on in the chat that's relevant that I just wanted to bring up before we move forward, which is that somebody asked what did we mean by generational, the generational aspect. And that question actually was posed to us as a group. The local associations committee as a group is, are there trends related to generations that we're seeing? And as several people have pointed out, of course, many young professionals are serving in boards. And one thing that I love that I wanted to just point out, what Jennifer had posted, which is that Gen Z has steady board service numbers according to Leading with Intent, which is just evidence around the potential for these young professionals to be involved in board service, which several people have mentioned. So anyway, just wanted to provide context around the actual topic we're discussing.
So for those of us who have worked with youth volunteers, high school, college, the young ones that we're bringing up right, we see that they may be exposed to and have some level of commitment toward the surface, but we haven't necessarily presented and pushed them toward the leadership. So I'm the one who mentioned I have 112 years in this, and I grew up, so knee high to the grasshoppers, with board leadership at every turn. In that rural community, there was some board, some committee, some body that was giving me instructions. And I knew that one day I wanted to be one of the ones giving instructions. So it was just automatic. And I don't know that everybody has been exposed to that. So it's part of the horn tooting on their part and our part in exposing them to this ain't your grandma's board anymore. Shortening the board meetings, making them fun, which of course we all do with our boards. and letting everybody anymore. I don't want to be a leader for the next 3 years. Let me dip in, dip out. And that's what the associations are seem to be grappling with.
I think the other thing you have to do besides the board buddies is, and this is not my forte. I'm not a big icebreaker person or anything like that. I forget about those things. I just want to get to the meeting and get through it. But we have people on the board who are so good at that and so good at the even though I work with people all the time, that's not something I think about. And how do you connect people across the board? And one of our board members came up with this icebreaker about, putting a one-pager together of yourself and discussing it. And then we kind of bring it up at the meetings, and then having some socials. So you feel like you are connecting with people on not necessarily a professional level, but a personal level. So what are your likes, your dislikes? What are your hobbies? And then some surprises along the way, like what's something you wouldn't guess about me. I mean, that sounds like easy, but somehow it really works. And it always makes me feel connected. With a live, we're different because we are national. And so we're always on Zoom, but we work so well together. But I do say that for those of us who were able to meet at our the retreat and our points of light planning sessions, that meeting in person was really important and just kind of solidified our commitment to each other and to the field. And if you're having local associations where you're meeting already, I would just also suggest doing something that has nothing to do with the profession and just a social or connector type of activity that you would enjoy together, going for a boat ride or any something that would appeal to people to just connect them to each other as humans.
I would just point out that that's really, really important to do, especially if you're trying to do board work within an equity lens, is building those relationships. And equity work can only be done in relationship and in community.
Thank you. We'll go ahead on to the next question, which has to do with structure. So for local associations that are 501c3s, what structural template could they follow to implement leadership transition and succession planning?
When I was in MAVA and on the board, we tried to do something similar to a board buddy, but it wasn't a board buddy. It was a committee member that was active on the committee. And then as the board member with a person on a committee, I would encourage them to consider doing more on the board. And you can hang out with me and do this for a year with me if you'd like to see how it's done. Maybe you want to move into a different area that you don't usually work in, but you're kind of afraid of it. Well, let's do it together for a year and see if that works. Also, we as a board, even though sometimes board service can be daunting a lot, and sometimes carry some of that, we got to do the budgets, or we got to talk about this that's happening, or this person maybe complained about that. We really helped each other to get through that and look at the brighter side of what was happening, so that when we were projecting into the community about our board service, it wasn't all about, we don't have enough people on the board, we're not getting in enough money, we're not doing this, to potential people to come onto the board. Not that we would lie or anything of that nature, but we wanted to make sure that the highlight of our board service was not the struggles that we had to work through together, but the joy that we felt at the end of it, or the success. So we really like honed that in. Like when somebody was getting kind of down, we'd do like a session with them, like, hey, everything's okay. Don't, you know. So I think that was my best suggestion.
Some of the comments that had come up before when we had a pre-discussion were around actual structural things like bylaws in terms of encouraging succession planning. So I don't know if anyone would like to share what their board has in terms of that type of structure. Tim, looks like you're ready to share. Go ahead.
Yes. So with GAVA, we are a 501c3, and I know different associations do choose different designations. And we do have bylaws that are a governance document that outline the various roles, the timelines, the some like executive level succession planning, like, well, the vice president typically becomes the president after a term. And it really, our previous approved set of bylaws were really, really, really in depth, which I believe was helpful for many, many, many years, because our organization has been around for more than 35 years now. However, like many organizations, many associations, COVID was just not our friend. And I think that's a common theme these days. And we really lost a lot of engagement with our members, our networks. We lost some board participation and really had to focus on trying to rebuild during the pandemic and all of the other chaos that was going on. And one of the things that was important to us was making sure that we took the time to address our bylaws. So while it can be extremely helpful to have that structure in place, to have it thought out, we actually took a step back afterwards because we realized that we weren't in alignment with our own structure any longer, just to the realities of the world and the challenges that were occurring. So we actually worked with a local nonprofit that does pro bono attorney work, the Pro Bono Partnership of Atlanta, and we're able to rewrite our bylaws and then get them approved through our appropriate channels in a way that gave us more flexibility. Because at the end of the day, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but my understanding is that bylaws are our legal governance. And if we weren't following them, we were opening ourselves up to some liability and some issues. And when the bylaws are so narrowly written that it says that you have to vote by facsimile, which I have to practice pronouncing that word because it's not from my generation. When you have to vote by facsimile, well, maybe it's time for some updates. Maybe it's time to take a look at, what have you pigeonholed yourself into, or really gotten yourself stuck into, that needs to be opened back up. And that's what we did. We did some things that I think many local associations, and I would love to hear from anyone else, may not necessarily agree with, but they came out of necessity. For instance, we have, at least for the time being, suspended term limits, because if we had adhered to those, GAVA would not be in existence today. In fact, one of our board members and our current treasurer has been on and off our board. He is one of the original signatories 35 years ago. And that institutional knowledge is extremely helpful, but we want to make sure that we weren't putting our best intentions ahead of the reality of being able to move forward. And so doing that really got us back on the right track, got us back in the right direction. And now we are able to have those conversations again about, having the full board, having what committees do we need, what support do we need, and can we do term limits again? And it's a great place to be in.
I do agree with you, Tim, on the flexibility, because I mean, you can have an outline and you know what the recommended terms are, but also being prepared for emergencies or life events, or someone who is going to be in a leadership role and something happens and they can't take on that role. You know, are you prepared for the next person to step in? And that's part of board development per se. I know with Alive too, typically we have you know, it's you kind of work your way up in the role, and you're president-elect for a year, and then president for a year, and then past president. But sometimes that doesn't work out. And so like our current president was the president for 2 years. And actually there's been conversations around that really for the stability of the organization, maybe it is a 2-year term. It is a big ask, but sometimes, you know, you got the learning curve. You know, we're hoping the president-elect position is the learning curve, and then you're president. But, you know, really doing what is appropriate to grow and keep that organization going. So I really like that input, Tim, about, you know, checking your bylaws and making sure you haven't worked yourself into a corner.
In terms of organizations that are not 501c3s, there was a suggestion that are there any recommendations about models that they could implement to support leadership transition and succession planning? Any guidance for those organizations that are not 501c3s?
Okay. So Tulsa Alive was organized as an informal organization, and our membership was going to create the bylaws and apply for 501c3 status, and then the pandemic. So we are still informally organized as a nonprofit, and have no real inspiring guidance for anyone else that is not a 501c3. But I firmly believe that in 2024, we will move toward a more formal bylaws and toward 501c, if not 3, then is it C6? That is an association. Is that what Alive is? May move toward that, but we can only do it if our membership supports it. And that structure, thank goodness, like Tim had some flexibility in suspending the bylaws. Without bylaws, we had it kind of easy during the pandemic. We could bob and weave and stop, drop, and roll as was necessary because we didn't have that stricture of the bylaws. But then the flip side of that is we don't have the stricture of bylaws that would be guiding the organization.
Jerry, did you want to dive in on that? I see you're off mute there.
Oh, that was an accident.
Oh, that's okay. You have a lot of knowledge. We welcome your comments. Very good. The next question that I had, thank you so much, Brenda, that was great, was how has your organization altered or flexed your board structure due to recent challenges? And Tim, you kind of started in on that, but I don't know if others have things that they had changed. And of course, Brenda was adding their situation a little bit as well. Any other comments about that?
We actually, in acknowledging that we have lost throughout the state of Oklahoma, we've lost CVAs, even though everything we do is supporting that certifications, book of knowledge, the practice of standards, everything that Alive is all about. We decided we were going to restructure, reframe, reword the board roles in the roles and competencies that we all live by, right? And I can send that out to everybody, probably throw it on as a file or share it and get maybe your feedback and see if it makes even a lick of sense, because we have exposed our members to this for them to begin to embrace and step up into some of these roles.
Would you like to share it? I think Gretchen, could you, I don't know if anybody can share the way it's set up or not. It looks like you can share, Brenda, if you want to.
Cool.
Where'd you go?
Can we see it?
Yes.
Everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So of course, in our own volunteer roles, our position descriptions, whatever we're calling those nowadays, why serve, the benefits of serving, and what the specific requirements might be. But we state it right here, exhibiting the competency for our, well, actually had it all down below, but anyway, so specific requirements, and there's the role and the competency. This is what we're all living by in our CVA-ness. I'm a strategic architect and I plan. I'm an articulate ambassador and I'm an advocate. And what we tried to move toward is then identifying the role that would be the passionate strategic architect. Don't know, does that work? The articulate ambassador, all of us, 3 to 5 team members who are working in communications, marketing, pimping the org, horn tooting everywhere. We're the relationship builders, focused on members, our own association volunteer workforce, and then further helping them in their roles. Talent cultivator, all the programming that we are all doing. It's what we do, call it. And then the data champion, secretary, the organizational record keeping, and then the financial champion, treasurer, bookkeeping. I don't know, that's, it seemed to us with everything we've been talking about that if we are bold enough to promote our roles and competencies in this way, then maybe other people will get it better.
Mm-hmm. And do you, Brenda, I'm sorry, do you have a vibrant Dovia now?
No.
Are you
vibrant? No. Jennifer, we're vibrant. Jennifer Thompson and I, we're vibrant. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And what is your, like, do you have a goal? Like, when do you want to fill these roles?
I would like to have commitments by the time we gather for leveraging technology on October 18th.
And how close to that goal are you?
Jennifer and Brenda are vibrant.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's a really big goal in a pretty short amount of time.
Well, we have been soft selling this. I don't want to use the word cultivating, but yes, we have been. And the hard asks will be over the next few days, asking them to put the pedal to the metal, make the commitment, step up, be a part of this. Because we are the funnest, coolest, and grooviest, most vibrant of anyone.
I agree.
Alive. Yeah.
I agree. I will, I mean, that's a big task. This is a lot of information, and I think that I think it's a great document. I think it's great roles. I think that, if you can get a good team together, I think you will be able to grow out of this. It's just a matter of finding the right people.
Did you say 5? Were there 5 ifs? Who counted?
Yeah, there was a lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs.
We decided to do this because we were told by one of our members that the word board president, secretary, vice president of communications was intimidating to them.
Sure, somewhat true sometimes.
Yes. So we decided that we would look at it in a different way, hoping because it says 3 to 5 team members, that we get the people involved. They can see that they can do it, that they don't have to do it all by themselves. There will be somebody there to help them, because sometimes when I've been president of Alive, I'm now working with membership, which is hard, long distance. But it's one of those kind of things, is one person can't do everything. And I think that's the part with board members, that sometimes that's why that board buddy is so important sometimes, because they don't want to do it because it's going to take away from their own job. It's too much work. So we decided to make it more like it's the whole organization working together. And those people then will, the cream of the crop will come to the top. And that's kind of the way we looked at it. So it was one of those kind of things that we felt if we didn't do something like this, we wouldn't exist very much longer. Brenda and I and a group of people put Tulsa Alive together, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out the best approach for this. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you go back to the drawing board and you start over again, just like you do with your own volunteer programs, refresh, what is it? Review, refresh. I can't even remember the 3 words now, but
rinse, repeat.
Yes, there we go. So anyway, we're going to give it a try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll try something else, because Brenda and I are not going to give up on this organization, no matter what we do.
I think that is really well written. I would separate each one out on a separate piece of paper, because combined it looks kind of overwhelming. But if it's like a position description, but you know what I mean, just have it for the one position, because if you read through it, you're like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff we're trying to get. And I think it's just a visual thing for that. I did want to ask, is there a cost to be a part of Tulsa Alive?
We have an annual $25 for an individual.
Okay, so that's very, very, very reasonable. That's very reasonable. I would say for other local associations that might be struggling is, do look at, you need funds to do programs, and that's understandable. But, is there a flexibility? If it's too expensive, you exclude people, which can impact a diverse group of people. Can you do Alive does a pay as you can for the first year to assist some people? We are driven by membership dues to do our programs, but that's why I asked. I'm just wondering if could it be a price point issue to consider for some local organizations.
Every other professional association is 3 times that for anyone in our nonprofit world. So there are some organizations that charge nothing for members, and The group who organized our association said skin in the game is very important. So they said $25, and we've kept it at that, regardless of all the craziness that's been going on. And yes, Kathy, this particular 4 pages is way too much. Too many words, too much. It's just too much. So when we sit down and chat with one-on-one, those that we've identified and believe could rock this particular role because they are exhibiting a competency, then it will be just that specifically. We have them all broken apart.
It's a very interesting document. Thank you, Brenda, for sharing. It gives people ideas, I think, on how to reframe things, perhaps, give them another way of looking at the positions. You still need someone to deal with finances or membership and so forth, but connecting it up to the competencies is a really interesting way to go. Thank you.
We'll see. And
Yeah.
if Shelley's projection of how many ifs, then
Yeah.
we'll report back.
Well, and you have to look at if or when you get 3 people and you don't have all your teams rounded out, that's still a celebration, and that's 3 people farther than you've been. And then those 3 people can invite 3 more people, and eventually in a few months or years, you would have that board rounded out. So it's not something that's for sure going to happen overnight, no matter how many ifs, ands, or buts, but you can still celebrate those successes for sure.
Perfect.
I will also say that when I was on the MAVA board, we were a working board. So there was 15 of us, and we kept adding new board positions because everybody wanted to be on the board because we were the cool kids, and it was great. MAVA has had a change in leadership since my time when I was on the board, and they now are an executive board. And MAVA is still doing great things. They do a lot of research. They do really great work still. It is very different than when I was in MAVA. And I don't know how connected the board is to MAVA, and how connected the members are to each other. We were all very close, and of course we were not remote, so we were together more. But MAVA feels to me like less of a close group of people now than when we were the volunteer engagement professionals were driving what is happening at MAVA. We knew what we were struggling with. We knew what we were doing. We knew the trends because we were actually living in them. So we could really do some almost on the spot trainings or get something out really quickly because we were a broad group of people that had a lot of working knowledge in the field. So I don't know how much that happens now. I see a lot of that with Alive, and we're all virtual, so I don't know if it's a different way to run the organization, which is working for them. I mean, they're doing good. They got lots of grants, so I'm not saying good or bad either way, but there's definitely different ways to do things.
And I think that the big difference is, like you said, it was a working board, but now they have several paid staff. So it looks entirely different. I'm a MAVA member too. And boots on the ground people working on it, like you said, Shelley, has you really know what your needs are in your area. And MAVA does really amazing DEAI work. The other thing they had offered, which helped me as I transitioned like from HR, I was an HR person into volunteer engagement, was a leadership course and certification process. And that was a big a big, great training that was made available. So, you know, you need people to create the training. So you need to build your board, but, you know, looking at what the needs are and then trying to fill those needs for your membership is just so critical. But I think most local associations are likely volunteer run by membership. I think MAVA is pretty unique with having several paid staff.
Jen, are there any questions or comments popping up there in the chat that we need to catch?
No questions, but people are sharing a lot of really great resources and just chiming in with what's going on their organizations that are relevant. And Gretchen, I'm wondering, we can summarize the chat at the end, and share that out. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because there's lots of good stuff in there.
Great, thank you, Jen. I just have a couple more questions, and the next one is, nonprofits generally don't limit their boards to people who are in their service field. They add board members with specific skills like marketing, finance, legal, development, etc. How can local associations consider a broader range of board members?
So it never occurred to us with Tulsa Alive to even consider a member or a board member who is not neck deep in volunteer engagement. Wouldn't even consider that. This suggestion opens up the world.
I think in this, my opinion or my thought about this is twofold. The people that left professional volunteer engagement during during COVID, where did they go? What are they doing? And they would be a potential great board member because they know the field and had to leave it. So there is a great recruitment tool. Who's your former committee members or members? And second of all, at MAVA, we used to have always our treasurer was not somebody engaged in the field of volunteer engagement. I'm not sure why. I was happy about that because I don't like numbers. I'm better now than I was back then, but so we always sought out a different treasurer than in volunteer engagement, and it really changed the course of that volunteer or that treasurer, who then we had men and women, and their eyes were open to a whole new field of nonprofits and volunteer engagement that they did not even know existed. So I think I'm all for it. But sometimes we struggle just in our own field. How do you get out of it? But I wonder if Tim's got somebody here.
I was just gonna echo what you were saying, Shelley. Probably half of GAVA's current board are people who are no longer directly engaging volunteers directly, but they may be supervisors of those, or they may be people who retired from the field, or they may have moved into other roles. And so we actually are pretty lucky in that. However, we also, one of the things that we've talked about, at least our president and myself, is how can we recruit board members that work in the same space as our target audience. And so, you know, we're looking at executive directors, fundraisers, we're looking at business managers, people who work in the nonprofit space or healthcare or government or leadership, because so much of our goal with GAVA, and it's in our mission statement, is similar to very many goals out there, is to further our field. Well, we can't do that if we only talk to ourselves. We can't be in an echo chamber. And so getting more allies that are already in the organizations we're working with. So, instead of one of the things we're going to try to attempt in the next year is, instead of just going after the current members of GAVA, maybe taking some of the ideas that we've heard from here, like what you shared earlier about sending a thank you note for letting so and so be a board member, sending a note to people's our members organizations to see if there's someone that they would like to be a part of it. Also working with some of our larger organization members, which is something that's been very successful for us in the past, to see what can we do to grow more experience, and not just, it's really easy to put our blinders on and say we're the best, because we are. There's no denying that, but we want other people to say that as well. So that's what we're working towards. So I think you're spot on, Shelley, with that.
Okay, very good. The last question I have is, if a local association decides they can't continue as an independent organization, what are some alternatives? And Gretchen, I think you might want to answer that too a little bit.
I can, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's interesting listening to all of you today, because we were dealing with the same things. But I think our local volunteer administrator group, before they merged with us in our organization, they were already declining before COVID. And I think COVID just kind of put the last nail in the coffin. But how we started out for them to merge with us is they could not fill that treasurer position for the life of them. They kept trying and no one wanted to do it. And they lost their 501c3 status. So, plus, one thing, they would charge like $35 a year to be for dues, but then they would also give that money back to them to do other, like, for continuing education. So it kind of got to be a silly thing where it's like, well, why don't you just go pay for the class yourself versus us reimbursing it to you? So we became where I work for, the United Way, became the fiscal agent for that organization, because they couldn't find somebody to have a 501c3. They couldn't manage the books. So we already took that portion of it over for them. And then, COVID came along. In our community, we don't have a lot of volunteer engagement professionals that's the only thing they do. Most of them, it's basically maybe 25 or 30% of their job. They have other duties. Most of them are recent grads. And so we're doing a lot of coaching right now. So that's how we worked it out. We also made sure, as we're going through this process, and I've been on the board and the group for probably a good 10 years or so anyway, we had made sure that we redid our bylaws. So at the last very section of our bylaws said it was for how to dissolve the organization. And so basically we had around $6,000 or $7,000 we built up over the 30 years we've been in existence. And so we had to figure out how we dissolve that money, where does that money go, so that it could still help foster that professionalism and volunteer engagement. So that's basically how they end up merging with us, is because we had all that in place first. I don't know if that answers that question or not, if I've explained that well enough. So that's what we did.
Are they actually considered a program of United Way at this point, or how is that?
Yeah. So
in
what
your
we do,
structure?
if you want to know what we do, so and it's not just, I don't know if you're familiar with United Ways. It's not just our partner agencies. We open this to all 501c3s or anybody, even church organizations, school organizations that work with volunteers. It's open to everybody. We meet monthly, and what we also have on the back end of that helped with this too is that we have, since we are United Way, we have a very healthy relationship with local corporations. So I get anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year in corporate sponsorships. And so we use that money then to help fund our Heart of Illinois Volunteer Administrators Group. So it's myself, and I have one other part-time person. I actually have a volunteer from the group itself. And then we manage all the meetings. We have like a couple seminars a year. We're doing a live this year again for on October 18th. We do all those types of things for them. And then we manage the organization for them with their input. So yeah, it's kind of a standalone program for us, is how we manage it. So.
Could I ask Gina something? So Gina, are you a paid staff member of your United Way?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the program has no one necessarily paid by the program? you as a United Way staffer?
It's just part of
Okay.
my job. Yeah. We also have a
Execute the-
corporate volunteer council too. So, so we started, I had been doing just volunteer management or matching for years. And so eventually we started to formalize that into an online volunteer center. And so when we formalized that program, then that's where we start to get the sponsorship dollars coming in. And that then allows us to kind of grow that network and really work with everybody to get them, you know, what you guys are talking about. They don't know that this is a profession. You know, they do it as part of their jobs. You know, they're doing, some do fundraising, some do marketing, some just run the program themselves. And we've seen a lot of too since COVID that there were, it's ironic, not ironic, it's kind of sad. The few people who did full-time volunteer engagement in our community lost their jobs because of COVID. And so when the agency started getting back up again, instead of hiring one person to do that, they then turned one role into 3 roles. So I, instead of having one contact in an agency, I had 3 contacts in an agency. And so it got to be kind of difficult. And so by default, United Way's always kind of in the leader in that area. So then that's how we end up taking over and becoming the new organization that we have. So.
Besides United Way, I mean, Alive is really trying to promote, again, with our job leveling survey that was put out, you know, promoting volunteer engagement as a standalone profession. But so this might be counterintuitive, but if people are struggling locally, I mean, there's a couple things. Maybe you can reach out to those organizations that traditionally had volunteer management under them, like, you know, SHRM, HR organizations are pretty strong and common in a lot of areas, and even development, you know, development officers, groups, having a conversation with them to see if you could join forces or be like a subcategory under them to build your strength and your numbers. And by doing that too, you've just engaged again other people out, you know, that aren't traditionally doing volunteer engagement, but may help you keep building your association to the point where, you know, maybe you break off again, but you can be partners in another way. And like Gina said, maybe it's sponsorship partners, or, but there might be a conversation worth having to see if that's a possibility.
Yep. And we were kind of like, I would say, Switzerland in a way, because, you know, all the nonprofits in our area have their thing. You know, we work with kids, we do a food bank, we run this. And so they all have their individual buckets, whereas we represent everybody. And so we kind of became that neutral territory for them. They felt comfortable working with us, and we made it easy for them because they're so busy. We can send the minutes out for them. We can send the agenda, we can plan the meetings. And so we do that work for them. So we're kind of the executive committee for everybody. So.
I'll talk about the dissolution piece a little bit. Over the past few years, we had a couple of local associations approaches that they are folding. One was in South Florida, and they were very, it was a very loosely based group. They really were, their like membership was out of on a spiral notebook, and they weren't registered as a nonprofit. They just kind of met and, you know, shared resources. And I don't even think they had, you know, maybe $100 in their treasury. And so they had decided to just dissolve. And so they made a decision to just dissolve. So they didn't even have any formal bylaws, but they did call us to see, you know, what do we do? And then, and so they just sent an email to everyone. And I just, you know, said, encourage folks if they wanted to join Alive, of course. But, you know, then they just stopped meeting. And I think they donated money to one of the nonprofits that everybody agreed was, you know, a good idea to donate to, and then it was all done. And then I was also approached earlier this year by our friends at Dovia LA in Los Angeles, and they've also had just real challenges getting people to step up for leadership. And so having none step up, and their president there were some health issues, and just, you know, all the planets lined up that was the decision. So they have approached a another nonprofit entity called LA Works. Not a nonprofit, it's not a volunteer center, but it functions in some of those ways. And they are going to absorb the the association and continue on. And we've offered to be a liaison. But what was interesting is they did not have anything in their bylaws about how to dissolve. So we did help them do a little bit of research. And there is a great piece in the IRS under the whole nonprofit piece. And I'll put that link in this little document I'm putting together, because if you are registered as a tax entity, there is a process to go through. But the biggest thing is just making sure that you've dispersed any funds. And then when you fill out that little postcard every year to report, what is the 990, I think, there's a check mark on there that says this entity no longer exists, and you just check that off and then it's done. It's fairly simple, but depending on the size of your organization and what is in the treasury, it certainly is something that it's good to get some semi-professional advice. And I know that that's something that we're not here to be legal advice, but we are putting together some of the resources that we've gathered and putting them in our handbook. So a little plug for that. And
Gretchen, do you want to talk about what the potential difficulties of walking that decision back in the future? Do you think that's relevant right now? Or
yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just getting another nonprofit designation. There's just a lot more paperwork. If you had one and then you lost it, you can apply to get it reinstated, and that's not as onerous as a process. But to get a whole brand new one, just because a lot of it has to do with Homeland Security, and there's just a lot more to go through. So we always encourage people to not let that go, if at all possible, because it's just harder to get back if you drop it all the way. If you let it lapse, that's a little different beast. And that's happened, I think anecdotally, just over the past, 12 or 13 years working with local associations, that happens about 25% of the time. So if you're thinking, oh, that was me, there probably is someone else on this call that was like, oh, that was me too. So don't feel bad.
I think your point about Homeland Security is really important, because, I'm thinking that's relatively recent that became a key point. And that is also applied to when you're doing banking for your association. Like we have the challenge of all our officers live somewhere else, and we won't get Gretchen started on it, but we've literally met in Minnesota, but then have to ship paperwork off to another state, and they have to go into that local bank and then ship it around. But there's so much protection around banking because of Homeland Security. They are checking for so many things. So sometimes if you can get somebody on the board who is a CPA or working with a CPA who is very knowledgeable about that, that's or we'll do it pro bono, that's kind of critical to that whole process.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for all of your comments. And I just want to take things back to Jen, if you want to do any kind of wrap up or, ask any other questions out there, or anyone has comments that they'd like to make. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and I've been taking notes myself. So
I know
great
so much
suggestions.
amazing information. I'm so grateful to all the presenters for being here today to share this wealth of information. It's so incredibly helpful. Does anybody, I know Gretchen has a couple of things to share. Does anybody, though, before we pivot over to Gretchen, have any additional questions they wanted to ask or comments they wanted to make for the panel before we pivot? Carol.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I know Kathy just mentioned that sometimes you can look for somebody who will do like pro bono work or something like that. If you have a Center for Nonprofit Excellence in your area, they quite often will offer technical assistance. And why I say that is our community foundation, I Jean and Gretchen both know, or Jen and Gretchen both know this. We do not have a nonprofit designation because we were under someone else and we're working with that. And yesterday I talked to someone at the Community Foundation, and they said that they are working on a partnership with the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, who will bring in pro bono people to work with people like accountants and lawyers and stuff like that, to work with nonprofits and community partners. So if you have a Center for Nonprofit Excellence in your area, that may be something that you can tap into to get help. I actually went to another a live board member who is our treasurer for Alive, and I said, hey, this is what I'm facing. I know you've got an accounting background. Can you help? And we're going to meet tomorrow. And so reach out to your network and see who knows who. But yeah, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence is an idea.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carol. That is incredibly helpful. And yeah, brilliant idea going to her for some support there. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Questions or good info to share?
I just will, Jerry has some really great comments here in the comments. I think he's right on in that this takes time, and Alive also does this info sessions for, oh, now I lost you.
It's okay.
No, we can hear you.
You can still hear me? Oh, good. I just can't see you anymore.
Yeah, we can't see you, but we can hear you. There you are. You're back.
Good. Okay, good. So Gretchen does info sessions, or Alive does info sessions about what does it mean to be on the board. And I think that Jerry was saying his organization does that. A great way to just, if people are thinking about it, no obligation, short, sweet, get it done. You know, if you're looking for they could be done online, or you could just host a coffee hour and invite people to come. I think those are great things. So I just wanted to highlight Jerry's good ideas there.
And since we're in Portland, my local association does the board recruitment events as a happy hour. So, you know, there's an option there as well. Jerry.
I was just going to say, we can't wait to the last minute to start recruiting board members. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that we kind of have the structure that we start in June or July for the November election. And it also allows times to create, we've talked a lot about relationships. And I know organizations that don't do it until like a month before. So just a suggestion, see if you can do it earlier. And,
absolutely, Jerry. I mean, just like with membership, every event you do all year long is a recruitment opportunity, not just for membership, but for board members. Every time I was introducing a workshop presenter or welcoming people to an event or a happy hour or something like that, I would plug board leadership as, you know, something that people might want to consider doing. So yes, great point to finish out on, Jerry. Thank you so much. All right, let's go hear what Gretchen has to say. Thank you.
I'll just make a plug for our next gathering time. So that's a little different. Around the time of International Volunteer Managers Day, which is November 5th, this is our third or fourth annual summit. And that is a gathering. Again, we'll reach out to all local associations, and it's a chance for people to share successes, challenges. We'll kind of find out, you know, what's been happening, what's the pulse, and that will help us plan our community of practice discussions, presentations like today based on that conversation. So that's how we did it. So I wanted to just share a little bit about, whoops, that was the, come on. We have too many windows open. Okay, so our registration is now open. It's a separate registration than the one you were on today. So if you just go to our calendar and click on November 2nd, and there will be more information coming through email and as well as the newsletter, social media. But I'm really excited that we have a special guest to help us celebrate all the awesome things that we are. Speaking of bragging better, and Martin J. Cowling. And if you have been involved in the field for a couple years, you might have heard of him, and you could see his bio there. He's coming back into the field after stepping away to do some government and other nonprofit work. So he's very excited. He'll be joining us. I think he's from Australia, so he'll be fun to listen to no matter what he says. I think he'll be joining us from Thailand, where he's currently living. But it'll be great. But we'll also just have a chance to really share some great things. And I'm also going to reach out to a local association that I met with during my travels this year. I was really fortunate to meet up with local associations in Indianapolis and Boise, Idaho at Sweetoffs, with Dovia, Colorado, in Denver, and then also in Topeka, Kansas, with Move Managers of Volunteer Engagement. But also I met with the president of the Las Vegas Dovia, and she assured me they're going to be joining as members, and I'll be, of course, following up. But she shared a really unique thing that they have done, and I'm going to ask her if she'll come and maybe talk about it a little bit at the summit. So you've heard, and I know the folks at SAVMA a couple of years ago did a great presentation for us about how they joined together with their local association and did one big, huge volunteer fair. And then they did a nice presentation about it. And it was really, really helpful, really interesting idea. And they kind of shared what worked and what didn't. And this was just, I want to say probably like kind of early COVID. But when I talked to the gal, Nikki Preston in Dovia, Las Vegas, their local association banded together and did a huge volunteer appreciation, which I'd never heard of a local association doing that before. So what was neat was many smaller organizations just don't have the bandwidth, but because they got a whole bunch of people together, they got a huge event space donated. And that also piqued the interest of a, local personality as a speaker. And then they also, like they seated the volunteers that all the volunteers for this organization sat together so they could still be recognized, but they also shared information. So it was also like a mini volunteer fair too. So it was all about, but Nikki, who helped put this together, is super dynamic as far as that development piece and asking for things and not taking no for an answer. So it was really a unique idea. I just never heard of it before, and I've been sharing it everywhere I go. So I just wanted to pass that along. And again, I've kind of gathered some of the resources and discussion items, and I'm just double checking the chat box.
And Gretchen, it looked like a couple of people weren't able to see your screen when you were sharing the event info, but you'll send that event link when you send the rest of the stuff, right?
And I'll put that in the chat right now too, the register.
Great.
And this is for anybody involved in a local association. Doesn't have to be just the president, anybody is welcome, and hopefully makes, the board service and such not so scary. So I'll be putting that, that'll be going out to everybody as a follow-up, as well as this other information that I put together. So that's all I have. Jen.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Gretchen. And thank you again to our panelists, Brenda and Kathy and Tim and Shelley, for sharing your wealth of information. Thank you for everyone who chimed in with their ideas, Jennifer and Jerry and Carol, everybody else. And Mary Lynn, thank you so much for being our moderator today. We're so grateful to have you kind of take us through a complicated discussion around a challenging topic for literally every local association I've ever met. So thank you for the work you're doing in your communities. This is really, really important. Everybody is moving the needle forward in a good way, and I'm grateful to all of you. And with that, I'll say have a great rest of your day. It was nice to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.